I remember the exact moment I stopped being myself. It was a Tuesday, 3:17 in the morning. I woke up with my hands wrapped around my own throat. My fingernails had dug so deep into my skin that blood was already drying on my palms. I was choking myself in my sleep, and the worst part was not the pain. The worst part was the voice in my head that kept screaming at me to squeeze harder. My name is Steve. I am 34 years old. I work as an accountant at a small firm downtown. I have never been in a fight. I have never raised my voice at anyone. I have never even killed a spider without feeling guilty about it. I was the guy everyone called boring, the guy who never got angry, the guy who smiled at strangers and held doors open for old ladies and always said please and thank you. That was before the nightmares started, before the shadows moved, before something crawled inside my chest and made a home there. What I am about to tell you is something I have never shared publicly. Not because I am ashamed, but because I know most people will not believe me. They will say I had a mental breakdown. They will say I was stressed. They will say I imagined everything. But I was there. I lived it. I felt the cold fingers wrapping around my heart every single night. I heard the whispers that dripped poison into my thoughts. I watched my own hands do things I never told them to do. Something was trying to kill me, and it was using my own body to do it. This story is not about ghosts. This is not about horror movies or Halloween scares. This is about real evil. The kind that walks among us wearing familiar faces, the kind that hides in jealousy and hatred and envy, the kind that someone you know could send into your life without you ever realizing what was happening. If you have ever woken up exhausted even after sleeping for 12 hours, if you have ever felt a heaviness in your chest that no doctor could explain, if you have ever looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you, then you need to hear what happened to me, because what I went through might be happening to you right now. And you might not even know it. Let me take you back to where it all began. It was early March when I first noticed something was wrong. I had just finished a long project at work, months of overtime, months of stress. When it was finally done, I expected to feel relief, but instead I felt nothing, empty, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left only a hollow shell. I told myself it was burnout, normal exhaustion. I took a week off work and planned to do nothing but rest. I thought sleep would fix everything. I thought I just needed time to recover. I was so wrong. The first night of my vacation, I went to bed early, around 9 o'clock. I remember feeling strangely cold even though my heating was working perfectly. I pulled the blankets up to my chin and closed my eyes. Sleep came quickly, too quickly, like something was pulling me down into darkness. That was when I had the first dream. I was standing in a room I did not recognize. The walls were black, not painted black. They were made of darkness itself. Living darkness that moved and breathed and watched me with invisible eyes. In the center of the room there was a wooden table. On that table there was a bowl, and inside that bowl something was burning. I walked closer even though every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. The fire in the bowl was not orange or red. It was gray, sick-looking, like the flames were dying even as they burned. And in the center of those flames I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. It was a photograph. My photograph. My face was melting in the flames, my eyes bubbled and dripped, my smile twisted into a scream, and standing behind the table was a figure I could not see clearly. A woman. Her face was hidden in shadow, but I could see her lips moving. She was chanting something, words I could not understand, words that felt older than language itself. Her voice was like nails dragging across glass, like bones cracking, like the sound you hear in the silence of 3 in the morning when you are alone and suddenly certain that something is standing behind you. She lifted her head, and even though I could not see her eyes, I knew she was looking directly at me. And she smiled. I woke up screaming. My sheets were soaked with sweat. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode. I sat up in bed gasping for air, and that was when I felt something warm running down my upper lip. Blood. My nose was bleeding for no reason. I had not been hit. I had not picked at it. It was just pouring out of me like something inside had burst. I stumbled to the bathroom and grabbed a towel and pressed it against my face. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My skin was pale, almost gray. My eyes were bloodshot, and there were dark circles under them so deep it looked like I had been punched. I had slept for 10 hours, but I looked like I had not slept in days. I told myself it was just a nightmare, just stress leaving my body, just my mind processing everything I had been through at work. I cleaned up the blood and went back to bed and forced myself to go back to sleep. The next morning I woke up angry. Not annoyed, not frustrated, angry, pure burning rage that started in my stomach and spread through my entire body like fire. I did not know why I was angry. I had nothing to be angry about, but I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch something. I wanted to destroy everything around me. I got out of bed and immediately stubbed my toe on the nightstand. And I completely lost control. I grabbed the nightstand and threw it across the room. I picked up the lamp and smashed it against the wall. I punched the mirror until it shattered and my knuckles were bleeding. I screamed words I do not even remember, words that did not sound like me, words that felt like they were coming from somewhere else. When it was over, I stood in the middle of my destroyed bedroom, breathing heavily and staring at my bloody hands. I did not understand what had just happened. I had never done anything like that in my entire life. I was the calm one, the controlled one, the one who never lost his temper. But something had taken over. Something had made me into a monster for those few minutes. I sat down on my bed and cried. I cried because I was scared. I cried because I did not recognize myself anymore. I cried because deep down in a place I did not want to acknowledge, I knew something was very, very wrong. The days that followed were like living in someone else's body. I was there, but I was not in control. It was like being a passenger in a car while someone else drove. I could see what was happening. I could feel what was happening, but I could not stop any of it. My appetite disappeared completely. Food tasted like ash in my mouth. I would take one bite and immediately feel sick. In 2 weeks, I lost 15 pounds. My clothes hung off me like they belonged to someone else. My face became gaunt. My eyes sank deeper into my skull. People at the grocery store stared at me like they were watching someone die. Maybe they were. Sleep became my enemy. Every time I closed my eyes, I went back to that dark room. Every night the woman was there. Every night she was burning something new. My hair, my clothes, a piece of paper with my name written on it. And every night her chanting grew louder, more powerful, more triumphant. I started waking up in strange places. One morning I found myself in my kitchen holding a knife. I had no memory of getting there, no memory of taking the knife from the drawer. I was just standing there in the dark at 4 in the morning with a blade in my hand and a voice in my head telling me exactly what to do with it. I dropped the knife and ran out of my own house. I spent the rest of that night sitting in my car in the driveway, shaking, crying, praying to a God I was not even sure I believed in anymore. Please help me. Please make it stop. Please tell me what is happening to me. But there was no answer, only silence, and in that silence the whispers came back, crawling into my mind like worms, filling every corner with poison. You are worthless. You are nothing. Nobody loves you. Nobody would miss you. Just end it. Just end it all. I pressed my hands over my ears, but it did nothing. The voices were not coming from outside. They were inside my head, living there, growing there, becoming part of me. That morning, I called in sick to work. I had not been back since my vacation started. I told them I had the flu, but I knew I could not keep lying forever. I knew eventually I would have to face the world again, and the thought of that terrified me. Because the world had become my enemy. Everyone I looked at seemed to be mocking me. Strangers on the street, cashiers at stores, people walking their dogs, they were all looking at me with contempt, with hatred, with disgust. I could see it in their eyes. I could feel it radiating off them like heat. Logically, I knew it was not real. Logically, I knew these people had no reason to hate me. But logic had abandoned me. All I had left was paranoia. All I had left was the constant feeling that everyone wanted to hurt me, that the whole world was conspiring against me, that I was completely and utterly alone. One afternoon, I was standing in line at the coffee shop near my apartment. I had not been sleeping. I had not been eating. I was running on nothing but adrenaline and fear. The woman in front of me was taking a long time to order. She kept changing her mind, asking questions, being friendly with the barista. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed her arm and spun her around and screamed in her face. I do not remember what I said. I only remember the look of terror in her eyes, the way she stumbled backward, the way everyone in the shop stopped and stared at me like I was a monster. Because in that moment I was. I ran out of the coffee shop and did not stop running until I was back in my apartment. I locked the door and collapsed on the floor and sobbed until I had no tears left. What was happening to me? Why was I becoming this person? Why could I not control myself anymore? The shadows started appearing around that time. At first I thought they were tricks of the light, shapes in the corners of my vision that disappeared when I looked directly at them, but they kept coming back, and they kept getting closer. One night I was lying in bed trying desperately to stay awake. I was terrified of falling asleep, terrified of going back to that dark room, terrified of what the woman might do next. So I lay there with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling and praying for morning to come. That was when I saw it. In the corner of my bedroom, there was a shadow that did not belong to anything. It was shaped like a person, tall and thin with arms that hung down past where its knees should have been. It was darker than the darkness around it, a void in the shape of a man. I could not move. I could not scream. I could only lie there and watch as it slowly turned to face me. I could not see eyes, but I knew it was looking at me. I could feel its gaze burning into my soul, and then it smiled. I could not see a mouth, but I knew it was smiling. I could feel its satisfaction, its hunger, its anticipation. It took a step toward me, and I finally found my voice. I screamed louder than I have ever screamed in my life. I screamed until my throat was raw. I screamed until lights started turning on in the apartments around me. I screamed until the shadow dissolved into the darkness and disappeared. But I knew it was not gone. I knew it was just waiting. The next few weeks were the worst of my life. I stopped leaving my apartment completely. I ordered food delivery but rarely ate what came. I stopped answering my phone, stopped responding to texts, stopped checking emails. I cut myself off from everyone and everything because I was terrified of what I might do. The rage inside me was growing. It was no longer just anger, it was hatred, pure black hatred that burned like acid in my veins. I hated everyone, my family, my friends, my neighbors, strangers I had never met. I wanted them all to suffer. I wanted them all to feel the pain I was feeling. I wanted to make them pay for crimes they had never committed. These thoughts horrified me. This was not who I was. I was not a violent person. I was not a hateful person. I was the guy who rescued stray cats and donated to charities and cried at sad movies. But that person was disappearing. Every day a little more of him was eaten away, and something else was growing in his place. Something dark. Something hungry. Something evil. I started talking to myself, or rather something started talking through me. I would be sitting alone in my apartment and suddenly hear my own voice saying things I never thought, things I never would have said. Horrible things about the people I loved, detailed plans for violence and destruction, prayers to things that should never be prayed to. My reflection stopped cooperating. I would stand in front of the mirror and my reflection would move slightly out of sync. A smile when I was not smiling. A blink when my eyes were open. One night I saw my reflection raise a hand and press it against the glass from the inside while I stood perfectly still with my arms at my sides. I covered every mirror in my apartment with sheets, but I could still feel it watching me. I stopped sleeping entirely, not by choice. I simply could not do it anymore. Every time I started to drift off, I felt hands on my throat, cold, invisible hands squeezing the life out of me. I would jerk awake, gasping for air and clawing at my neck even though there was nothing there. 4 days without sleep. Then 5. Then 6. By the 7th day, I was seeing things that were not there even when I was awake. People standing in the corners of rooms. Faces pressed against my windows from the outside even though I lived on the 5th floor. Words appearing on my walls written in something dark that might have been blood. The words always said the same thing. You are mine. You will always be mine. There is no escape. I knew I was dying, not physically, not yet, but spiritually. Something was killing my soul one piece at a time, and I had no idea how to stop it. The morning I collapsed was the morning everything changed. I had not eaten in 3 days, I had not slept in 8. My body had finally reached its limit. I was trying to take out my trash because the smell had become unbearable. I made it as far as the hallway outside my apartment before my legs gave out. I hit the floor hard. I remember lying there looking at the ceiling. The fluorescent light was flickering above me, dying and coming back to life over and over, just like me, fighting to stay alive even when everything inside me was screaming to give up. That was when Mrs. Collins found me. She was my neighbor from down the hall, an elderly woman in her 70s with white hair and kind eyes and a habit of leaving homemade cookies outside my door on holidays. I had always been polite to her but never really got to know her. I did not know anything about her life or her history or what she believed. That was about to change. She knelt beside me and put her hand on my forehead. The moment her skin touched mine, something happened. I felt a shock go through my body, like electricity, like lightning striking from clear sky, and I saw something in her eyes: recognition, understanding, and then fear. She pulled her hand back like she had touched a hot stove. And she said words I will never forget. "Son, you are under attack. Someone is doing this to you. Someone is using black magic against you." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to tell her she was crazy. I wanted to get up and walk away and pretend this conversation had never happened. But I was too weak to move, too weak to speak, too weak to do anything except lie there and look into her eyes and see the truth reflected back at me. She was not crazy. She was right. Everything I had been experiencing, the rage, the shadows, the whispers, the dreams, it was not mental illness. It was not stress. It was not a chemical imbalance in my brain. It was something much older, something much darker, something that had been deliberately placed inside me by someone who wanted me destroyed. Mrs. Collins helped me back into my apartment. She was stronger than she looked, or maybe I was just that weak. She sat me down on my couch and looked around at the chaos of my living space, the trash everywhere, the covered mirrors, the words I had scrawled on the walls during blackouts I barely remembered. She did not judge me. She just nodded like she had seen this before. "I know someone who can help you," she said, "but you need to be willing to fight. You need to be willing to believe." I nodded. At that point, I was willing to try anything. She made a phone call, spoke quietly in a language I did not recognize. Then she hung up and told me someone would be there soon. She stayed with me while we waited. She held my hand and prayed quietly, and every time she said a word of prayer, I felt the darkness inside me recoil like a wounded animal. The man who arrived an hour later was not what I expected. I thought she was calling a doctor, or maybe a psychiatrist, someone in a white coat with clinical explanations for what was happening to me, someone who would give me pills and schedule therapy sessions and tell me everything would be fine. But the man who walked through my door was a priest. His name was Father Gabriel. He was tall and thin with gray hair and eyes that looked like they had seen things most people could not imagine. He moved slowly, deliberately, like a man who had learned long ago that rushing leads to mistakes. When he entered my apartment, he stopped and closed his eyes and stood perfectly still for a long moment. Then he opened his eyes and looked directly at me. "You are in great danger," he said, "but you are not alone. You were never alone." Father Gabriel asked Mrs. Collins to leave the room. She squeezed my hand one more time and then walked out and closed the door behind her. For a long moment, the priest just looked at me, studied me, seeing things I could not see. "Tell me everything," he finally said. So I did. I told him about the nightmares, about the dark room and the woman and the burning photographs. I told him about the rage that came out of nowhere, about the violence I could not control, about the coffee shop and the destroyed bedroom and the knife I found in my hand at 4 in the morning. I told him about the shadows, about the figure in the corner, about the reflection that moved on its own, about the whispers that never stopped, about the voice that kept telling me to hurt myself, to hurt others, to give up, to give in. I told him everything. And he listened. When I was done, he reached into his bag and pulled out several items: a small bottle of what looked like water, a candle, a Bible that looked older than he was, and a photograph. My photograph. He must have seen the confusion on my face because he explained. "Mrs. Collins took this from your apartment earlier," he said. "I needed to test something." He placed the photograph on my coffee table and set the candle next to it. Then he lit the candle and watched the flame. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the flame changed. It shot up suddenly, violently, growing 3 times its normal size in an instant, and the color changed. The tip of the flame turned black, not dark blue, not gray, black, the absence of all light, the color of the void itself. Father Gabriel nodded slowly, like his worst suspicions had been confirmed. "This is not ordinary evil," he said quietly. "Someone has bound something to you, something old, something powerful. Someone wants your spirit broken. Someone is trying to make you destroy yourself." He picked up the small bottle and opened it. The moment the cap came off, I smelled something clean, something pure, something that made the darkness inside me scream in silent fury. "Holy water." He sprinkled a few drops on me. And I screamed. It felt like boiling oil had been poured on my skin. I clawed at my face, trying to wipe it off. I fell off the couch and writhed on the floor in agony, but there was no burn, no blister, no physical damage at all. The pain was not in my body. It was in whatever was living inside me. Father Gabriel knelt beside me and looked into my eyes. I could see compassion there, but I could also see determination, the look of a man who had fought this battle many times before and intended to win again. "Your anger," he whispered, "it is not your anger. It is a curse, something meant to twist your emotions against you, to make you destroy your own life so they do not have to. You are being murdered slowly, and the weapon is your own heart." I wanted to ask questions. I wanted to know who was doing this, why they were doing it, how they had done it, but before I could speak, something else took over. Something used my voice. "He belongs to me." The words came from my throat, but they were not my words. The voice was deeper, older, filled with a hatred that went beyond anything human. It sounded like gravel grinding against glass, like bones being crushed, like the dying scream of something that should never have existed in the first place. Father Gabriel did not flinch. He opened his Bible and began to read. The moment the first words left his lips, I felt the thing inside me go insane. It thrashed and clawed and bit. It felt like there was a wild animal trapped in my chest trying to tear its way out. I convulsed on the floor, my back arched so far I thought my spine would snap. Foam began to form at the corners of my mouth. And the shadows came back. They poured out of the corners of the room, out of the walls, out of the floor, dozens of them, hundreds of them, all converging on Father Gabriel, trying to stop him, trying to silence him, trying to protect whatever was living inside me. But he did not stop. His voice rose, the words came faster, ancient phrases I did not understand but somehow recognized, words of power, words of protection, words that had been spoken for thousands of years against exactly this kind of evil. I felt hands on my throat again, the invisible hands that had been choking me for weeks. But this time they were not holding back. This time they were trying to kill me before Father Gabriel could finish. My vision started to go dark. Stars exploded behind my eyes. I could not breathe. I could not think. I could feel my life slipping away. And then I heard Mrs. Collins. She had come back into the room even though she had been told to leave. She was kneeling beside me, holding my hand, and she was saying something over and over in a voice that cut through the chaos like sunlight through storm clouds. "God is stronger, hold on. God is stronger, hold on. God is stronger, hold on." I do not know if it was her words or Father Gabriel's prayers or simply the fact that I was finally ready to surrender, but something shifted inside me, something broke loose. A wall that had been built around my soul began to crumble. And behind that wall there was light. Before we go any further, if you believe in Jesus, subscribe to my channel because we provide daily Jesus stories that change people's lives. The light was brighter than anything I had ever seen. It was warm, it was safe. It was everything the darkness had been trying to make me forget. It poured through me like water through a broken dam. It filled every empty space. It touched every wound. It reached into the places where the evil had taken root and burned it away. I heard a voice. Not the voice of the thing inside me, not the whispers that had tortured me for weeks. A different voice. A voice that was ancient and eternal. A voice that was love itself given sound. "You are mine. No darkness can claim you." The room shook. The candles exploded backward. Every light in my apartment flickered and died. And something came out of me. I felt it leave my body like a scream being ripped from my lungs. A black mist that poured out of my chest and my mouth and my eyes. It twisted and writhed in the air above me. It screamed in a language that predated human speech. It reached for me one last time with claws made of pure hatred. But the light was faster. The light consumed it. And then it was gone. I passed out before my head hit the floor. When I woke up, I did not know where I was. The ceiling looked familiar but different somehow. Cleaner, brighter, like I was seeing it for the first time. I tried to sit up and was surprised to find that my body actually responded. No heaviness, no chains around my chest, no invisible hands trying to push me back down. I felt light. Not weak, not empty, light, like a burden I had not even known I was carrying had finally been lifted from my shoulders. Father Gabriel was sitting in a chair near my couch. He looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes and lines on his face that had not been there before. Whatever had happened had taken something out of him too. But he was smiling. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about the question, really thought about it for the first time in what felt like forever. "I feel like myself," I said. And I started to cry. Not from sadness, not from fear, from relief, pure overwhelming relief that washed over me in waves. The anger was gone, the hatred was gone, the voices and the shadows and the constant crushing weight of despair. All of it was gone. I was alone in my own head for the first time in weeks, and the silence was the most beautiful thing I had ever heard. Father Gabriel let me cry. He did not try to comfort me or stop me or tell me everything was okay. He just sat there and waited, like he understood that some things need to be released before healing can begin. When I finally stopped, he leaned forward and looked at me with those ancient eyes. "You were chosen for harm," he said. "Someone saw your light and wanted to extinguish it. They used old magic, dark magic, the kind of evil that has been practiced for thousands of years. They bound something to you, something that fed on your anger and used it to destroy you from the inside." Who I asked who would do this. Father Gabriel shook his head. "I cannot tell you that," he said. "That is not my gift. But I can tell you that God stepped in, not because you asked, not because you prayed, but because heaven knew what your soul carried. You were meant for something, something important, and the darkness sensed it. That is why you were targeted." He reached into his bag and pulled out something that made my blood run cold. It was a jar. A small glass jar filled with things that should never have been put together. I could see strands of hair inside. My hair. There was a piece of fabric that looked like it had been torn from my shirt. There were rusted nails, black ash, and at the bottom of the jar there was a photograph. My photograph. Burned and twisted and covered in something that looked like dried blood. "We found this," Father Gabriel said. "It was buried under your porch. Your landlord let us dig after I explained the situation. This is what was used against you. This is the anchor that held the curse in place." I stared at the jar in horror. Someone had put this together. Someone had gathered pieces of me. Someone had spoken words over this collection of artifacts and sent something after me, something that had almost killed me. Who I asked again, "Please, I need to know." Father Gabriel placed the jar on the table. "That is not for me to say," he repeated. "But think carefully. Who in your life would have access to your hair, your clothing, a photograph? Who would have a reason to want you destroyed? Who would know about these practices?" I thought about it. I thought about everyone I knew, everyone I worked with, everyone I had ever wronged or disappointed or simply existed alongside. And slowly a face began to form in my mind. But I pushed it away. I was not ready to accept it, not yet. Father Gabriel stood up and gathered his things. "You are protected now," he said. "The curse has been broken. The thing that was sent after you has been destroyed, but you must be careful. The person who did this is still out there. They know their magic failed. They know you survived, and that kind of evil does not give up easily." "What do I do?" I asked. "Pray," he said, "every day, every night. Surround yourself with people who love you, people who believe. Stay in the light and the darkness cannot touch you again." He walked toward the door and then paused. "And forgive," he added. "I know that sounds impossible. I know you want justice. I know you want to confront the person who did this and make them pay, but revenge will only open the door again. Forgiveness is the lock that keeps it closed forever." Then he left. Mrs. Collins stayed with me for a few more hours. She cleaned my apartment while I sat on the couch and tried to process everything that had happened. She did not ask questions. She did not pry. She just worked quietly and hummed hymns under her breath and filled my space with peace. Before she left, she hugged me. "You are stronger than you know," she whispered, "and you are never alone, remember that." I promised I would. The weeks that followed were a slow process of recovery. I returned to work. I reconnected with friends. I started eating again, sleeping again, living again, but everything felt different now. Brighter, more meaningful, like I had been given a second chance at life and I was not going to waste it. The person who cursed me. I know who it was. I finally admitted it to myself about a month after my deliverance. It was someone I had trusted, someone I had known for years, someone who had smiled at me and pretended to care about me while secretly plotting my destruction. I will not say their name. Not because I am protecting them, but because their identity does not matter. What matters is what I chose to do with that knowledge. I chose to forgive. Not because they deserved it, they did not. What they did to me was evil, pure evil. They tried to make me kill myself. They tried to drive me insane. They tried to steal my life and my future and everything I could have become. But I forgave them anyway. Because forgiveness is not about letting them off the hook. It is about refusing to let their hatred live inside me anymore. It is about breaking the last chain that connected me to the darkness. It is about being free. I still see them sometimes, at gatherings, at events, in public places. They look at me with confusion, with fear, with a kind of desperate hatred that tells me they know their magic failed. They know something protected me. They know they lost. And I just smile. Not with anger, not with triumph, with peace. The peace that comes from knowing that no matter what they try, no matter what evil they send after me, I am protected by something far more powerful than anything they could ever conjure. Father Gabriel told me something before he left that day. He said that people like me are often targeted because we carry light, because we have potential, because there is something inside us that the darkness fears and wants to destroy. I did not understand what he meant at first, but I understand now. I was meant to survive this. I was meant to come through the fire and use my story to help others. There are people out there right now going through exactly what I went through. They are waking up angry without knowing why. They are seeing shadows in the corners. They are hearing whispers that tell them to give up. They think they are losing their minds. They think they are alone. But they are not. And they are not crazy. What happened to me was real. Black magic is real. Curses are real. Evil is real, but so is God, so is protection, so is deliverance. The darkness might be powerful, but it is nothing compared to the light. Nothing at all. If you are reading this and something feels wrong in your life, if you have been experiencing changes you cannot explain, if someone seems to hate you more than is rational, if you feel watched and targeted and attacked in ways that make no sense, please listen to me. It might not be your imagination. It might not be stress or anxiety or mental illness. Someone might be doing something to you, and you need to fight back, not with hatred, not with revenge, but with faith, with prayer, with people who believe and can help you break free. You are not powerless. You are not hopeless. You are not alone. I almost died. I almost let the darkness win. I almost became exactly what they wanted me to become. A broken shell of a man who destroyed himself and everyone he loved. But God had other plans. He reached into the darkness and pulled me back into the light. He sent Mrs. Collins to find me. He sent Father Gabriel to fight for me. He surrounded me with protection at the moment I needed it most. And he will do the same for you. All you have to do is ask. All you have to do is believe. All you have to do is hold on. Because whoever tried to end me has already lost. They threw everything they had at my life and it was not enough. The curse is broken, the evil is gone, and I am still here, still breathing, still living, still carrying the light that they tried so desperately to extinguish. And the person who sent that darkness after me, they have to live with the knowledge that they went up against God. And God won. They will never be able to touch me again, not because I am special, not because I am strong, but because I am protected by a power they cannot fight, a power they cannot understand, a power that was there before the universe began and will be there after the last star burns out. I do not know what the future holds. I do not know what challenges are still ahead. I do not know if the person who cursed me will try again or if they have finally learned their lesson. But I know one thing for certain. I am not afraid anymore. The darkness touched me, it lived inside me, it showed me the worst of what evil can do, and I survived. I came through the fire and I am stronger now than I have ever been, not because of anything I did, but because of what was done for me. I was supposed to die. I was not supposed to make it. I was marked for destruction from the beginning. But here I am, alive, free, saved. And if I can survive this, then so can you. Whatever you are facing right now, whatever darkness is pressing against your soul, whatever whispers are telling you to give up, there is hope, there is help, there is a way out. You just have to take the first step. You just have to reach for the light. Because the darkness will never stop trying. But God will never stop protecting. And in that battle, there is only one possible winner. Trust me. I have seen it with my own eyes. Type Amen if you believe in miracles. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And remember that no matter how dark things get, the light is always stronger. Always.